Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, let's just go over and see what happened in the markets. Pretty wild day once again. I mean, Tesla always finds a way to be very, I guess, interesting, if you know, to say the least. So Tesla ending the day up 5.61% at 11.45 and 45 cents, which is insane. So you can see Tesla is essentially at the very top of this channel now that we have kind of been slowly descending in, like extremely slowly in this case specifically for the top channel. But starting from the all-time highs of 1243.49, we came back up, we retested it again, pretty much at 1200, give or take. And now we're back up testing it again in this very slight downward channel, which is essentially around this 1150 area. And this to me was the best case scenario. This to me was the scenario where pretty much like, it's essentially best case. Now, and I talked about this like last week, one of the videos, I forgot which one, where I said that 1150 I think is best case, which is essentially what happened today. We went to like 1149. I would be genuinely shocked, like legitimately shocked if we surpass 1150. If we do, so okay, this is why I always talk about both cases, bull case and a bear case, because with Tesla, even if there's 9 out of 10 signals pointing to downside and a bear case, as long as there's at least one signal pointing to a potential bull case or a move upwards, with Tesla specifically, you can't ever take that out of the equation, because you always have to assume that, you know what, it's still very possible to move up. And that's essentially what happened, right? We did talk about this last week. I did say how overall it's looking bearish and it wants to pull back. However, there was one still, bull case intact. And that was essentially, we were in this small little flag, which was, something along the lines of this, right? Give or take. We were essentially setting up this little bull flag, which was essentially the last hope. And apparently it was enough. Now, it was weird because Tesla started today, actually went up to test the top of the bull flag, got rejected, fell all the way down to 1072, which again looked like it was about to break down. But once again, it was an absolute trap for the bears, similar to this little candle over here we had last week. I think it was Thursday or Friday. Just an absolute bloody trap, like unbelievable. I really wish I can see how many people got trapped in this move downwards in the morning, because it really made it seem like it's about to break down right here. Like this was like, it really seemed like it was very, very, like it was just hanging on by thread. And then out of nowhere, just like as people were probably buying puts, it just shot right back up, just completely exploded. It's just insane, man. It truly is just something else. I really just sometimes don't even have words to express just how unbelievable this move is. But nonetheless, it did happen, right? So again, in my opinion, 1150 was the best case scenario, the top of this channel, right? We retested it once again. Guys, I don't know. I feel like a broken record at this point. Like the fact that Tesla's just casually breaking through everything. At this point, in all honesty, wouldn't surprise me too crazy, I guess, to just casually break through this 1150, which is the top of this channel, and go up to, maybe 1200 and then maybe all-time highs. Honestly, at this point, who knows, man? Really, seriously, who knows? At this point, maybe it's possible. It's very possible. Again, just like I always say, I personally still think that the odds are not in the favor of that, mainly because eventually this has to run out of steam, similar to how up here, eventually it ran out of steam. Same with this move, eventually it ran out of steam. It will run out of steam at some point. It's just a matter of when, not if, right? Maybe it's here, maybe it's here, maybe it'll be at all-time highs. Maybe it'll even make a new all-time high. Who knows? But the point is that every single time it makes this massive leg upwards, the chances of it continuing upwards, in my opinion, are slowly decreasing. Now, let's take a look. So, looking at the bull case, regardless, though, again, we still want to talk about the potential bull case, potential run up here. Overall, what do I think will happen? Now, number one, I am expecting a retrace tomorrow. Tomorrow is a Tuesday. I do expect a red day tomorrow. Where is it going to go? Well, the first and foremost is, of course, all support, or rather all resistance is now support. This 1115 general 1114 15 area was obviously resistance. Now that we're above it, well, it's obviously going to be support. First and foremost, you want to see what happens to this 1115, because it's probably going to come down tomorrow, in my opinion, and retest 1115. And it's going to be very important to see what happens. Does it bounce off, or does it just completely crash under? That's number one. So assuming it bounces off 1115, then we're probably going to come back up and retest this kind of 1140-ish level, right? Somewhere in the 1140s, this red line once again. And essentially what you want to see is you wanted to see it break this 1145 to 50 range. To make it safe, 1150. You want to see a break 1150, and if it does that, pretty convincingly, and it doesn't just kind of go over there for maybe a little bit, like a few minutes or even like 10-20 minutes, and it consistently holds above it, and especially ends a daily candle above it, then we can easily start talking about pushing to 1200. And then if it breaks 1200, we can talk about all-time highs. But first and foremost, let's just focus on one step at a time to the upside, because again, every single time it's going to be harder and harder and harder, especially when it's just straight up only, essentially, right? Keep that in mind, guys. But nonetheless, 1150 is the level to break if you want to see upside to 1200. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it likely? Honestly, I would give it like at best a 20% chance. Now, what is the downside potential? So assuming 1115 breaks at some point and doesn't hold, then we're going to, of course, just essentially fall back in this channel. And then we're going to pretty much play out more or less what we did here, potentially go sideways a little bit. And then eventually, if we ever break this 1072 to like 1060 and especially 1054, that's the levels to watch. First and foremost, I would say 1072 will break down to 1065. 1065 will break down to 1053 roughly. And then 1053 will break down to the 1040s and under. That's essentially what you want to be eyeballing in that specific scenario, right? Looking at it again, overall in the greater picture, guys, keep in mind, right? Tesla, this RSI is still setting lower highs. Even today, after the move, it still set a lower high. The highest high it set was back when we went to 1035, 1040, that general range. You can see here, RSI 87. We pushed up. The highest point we were up here was, on the RSI at least, about 79, which was essentially the highest point up here. And that set a lower high compared to this, which even though the stock moved higher. So the stock is setting higher highs, the RSI is setting lower highs and lower lows, right? You can see here, lower highs, lower lows, constantly going downwards. And now we push up somehow even higher to pretty much 1150. What happened at 1150? The RSI peaked at 75-ish, even though 78 was the peak all the way over here, which was obviously lower than we're at right now, right? That's a solid 3% move from this peak, and the RSI is still setting a lower high. Keep that in mind, guys. Again, I hate to sound like a broken record. I know it's exciting. I understand everyone's excited. Hope you guys are making money, all that stuff. Don't get me wrong. But if you're someone that's trading, again, if you're an investor, if you're holding, doesn't matter. Obviously, you're just along for the ride, up or down. But if you're someone that's trading or looking to take profit, not financial advice, again, make your own decisions. But the RSI is suggesting that we are slowly starting to reach a point where Tesla will have a pullback, probably down to this gap fill at the very least. The RSI is severely suggesting that. Guys, keep that in mind. I want you guys to be really, really aware of that. Again, I don't want to be a party pooper. I'm just trying to be a realist. Is there more potential upside? Absolutely. But again, the risk versus reward up here is starting to get dangerous. Just keep that in mind. So, nonetheless, that's essentially what I'm looking for the downside. So those are the upsides and those are the downsides. Even the daily is starting to reach potentially overbought territory. Now, the good thing about the daily, however, is that somehow it is actually still making higher highs. So the daily hasn't shown those reversal signals. Now, what does that mean? That means that Tesla shouldn't completely crash. It shouldn't just, within a day or two, just completely plummet and crash all the way back down to the 900s. The chances of that are very unlikely, unless, of course, some major catalyst comes out, which you cannot predict. Just from technicals alone, it does mean that Tesla is still showing decent strength even after all these pushes. However, with that being said, the short-term movements in the 1 hour charts, the 30 minutes, all that kind of stuff, they're kind of showing a little bit more weakness in the shorter time frame. So, which is why I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla at some point, maybe later this week, maybe next week, starts pulling back down to closer to this gap fill. Now, personally, what am I going to be doing? Right now, I'm not really doing a whole lot. I'm not going to lie, I tried to catch the top a couple times with puts. Clearly, it didn't work out very well because apparently we're just pushing up like no tomorrow, and apparently there's not a single seller in sight. But with that being said, I'm going to be doing a different approach here. I'm going to be starting to do what is called the wheel strategy. If you don't know what the wheel strategy is, I highly recommend looking it up. But to put it very, very simply, I'll be essentially selling puts. Now, selling puts is essentially considered a bullish position. What I'm going to be doing is I'm waiting for the red day, probably tomorrow, and I'm going to be selling weekly puts somewhere in the 1,000 range, probably like around 1040. Pretty much what that means is I'm willing to buy Tesla shares at 1,040 if it ends around 1,040 or lower by Friday. That's essentially what I'm doing, right? If I get exercise and I'm forced to buy, that's fine. I want to buy somewhere around the mid to low thousands regardless, because I don't think it's going to go lower than 1,000 anytime soon. Not like within the next week or two. I think it'll take like maybe a month before we drop below 1,000. But That's essentially what I'm personally going to be doing, right? So that's my opinion right now. That's what I'm going to be doing. And then if I get exercised and I'm forced to buy, you know, the shares, which is fine, I want shares anyways, I'll be selling covered calls. And that's essentially the wheel strategy. And you kind of keep playing the premium game like that. That's what I'm going to be doing personally, guys. So we'll see what happens. I'm waiting for a nice little juicy red day, potentially tomorrow, down to this, you know, low 1100 area. If that happens, that's where I'm probably going to be, you know, probably going to look to start selling weekly puts. Which is, again, a fairly bullish position. I'm essentially thinking that Tesla won't drop too far below 1040. And if I sell those specific puts, I think it'll make my break even somewhere around the low thousands, something like that. I need to double check, but it'll change based on tomorrow's movement anyways. So today's numbers don't really matter. Regardless, that's what I'm personally looking at. One thing that I can see happening, by the way, down the road, you know, maybe at the end of this week, early next week, is potentially setting up a head and shoulders pattern. You can see here, this is potentially the left shoulder right here. This is potentially going to be the head as we potentially kind of fall down like this, probably eventually break down, come back down here, bounce up, and potentially set up the right shoulder. So I wouldn't be surprised, and with, you know, maybe later this week, sometime next week, we eventually see a kind of head and shoulders pattern set up and form right now, with the head currently forming as we speak. So that's essentially what I'm seeing, guys. That's my predictions. Let me know what you think down below. But again, guys, be very careful chasing up here. Again, Tesla's great. If you're holding long term, it's fine. But, you know, if you're trading and, you know, even if you're investing long term, not financial advice, you know, all the way up here, this is pretty high. I'm just going to be saying that, guys, it's pretty high. It will retrace. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. Either way, guys, let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Peace.